Miles Carter, 38, is the brilliant CEO of a Houston energy empire. He has wealth, power, but a hollow heart, haunted by the woman he walked away from and the family he never thought he'd have. One windy afternoon, while driving past a vacant lot, his world stops. A little girl, flying a homemade kite, yells, "Dad, look!" and something in her voice pulls him to the curb. Her name is Lila. She's 8, gentle, creative. She builds kites from scraps, and she has Miles's eyes. Soon, he learns the girl's mother is Nora, his ex, the one he left after a bitter misunderstanding. But there's more. Miles' Uncle Frank, a cunning manipulator, told Nora that Miles never wanted kids. He lied to steal shares in Miles' company. Now, as memories resurface and truths untangle, Miles helps Lila build a kite and finds his own hope taking flight again. But can he earn back Nora's trust? Can a father's instinct overpower years of deception? The symbol? Lila's fragile paper kite, soaring high, just like the family Miles lost, and might just win back. Will love rewrite their story? Subscribe to see this heartfelt journey unfold. Miles Carter sat behind the glass walls of his Houston high-rise, staring at the city he powered but no longer felt part of. 40 stories below, people moved like clockwork. In his hand, a pen clicked rhythmically, matching the beat of the emptiness inside him. On paper, he was everything. CEO of Novacor Energy, Forbes cover, clean-cut genius. But lately, his days ended like his nights, quiet, polished, and utterly alone. His assistant knocked once, then opened the door. "Mr. Carter, your 3 p.m. was rescheduled. You're free until 5. He nodded without looking up. "Cancel the rest. I need air." Minutes later, Miles was driving through a quieter part of the city, windows cracked, a breeze slicing through the silence. He passed by an old vacant lot near 3rd and Magnolia. The wind was strong there, scattering leaves, tugging at his tie as he slowed at a red light. That's when he saw her. A little girl, maybe 8, chasing a red and blue paper kite. It danced wildly in the sky, swooping over her like a bird. Her hands tugged the string, laughter bubbling out, and then, "Dad, look!" Miles's foot slammed the brake. Though the street was empty, the girl had pointed at him. He blinked. She stood in the middle of the lot, cheeks flushed from the wind, brown curls whipping around her small face. Her voice had been so sure. Her eyes, wide, searching, looked far too familiar. "Dad," she'd said. The light turned green. Cars honked behind him, but Miles didn't move. Instead, he pulled over. He stepped out slowly, adjusting his blazer as if trying to compose more than just his posture. The girl had run back to the corner where her kite had dipped, now tangled in a bush. "Careful there," he called, unsure why his voice was shaking. She turned. Her gaze locked with his. "Hi," she said softly. "Sorry. I didn't mean to scare you." Miles crouched beside the bush, helping untangle the fragile paper wings. "You didn't scare me," he said. "Nice kite." "I made it," she beamed. "My mom says I've got good hands." He smiled, eyes narrowing slightly as he studied the design, painted stars, glitter around the edges, a little smudge that looked like a fingerprint. "You fly here often?" "Every Saturday. There's more wind here. Kites love wind." "What's your name?" he asked, trying to keep his tone even. "Lila," she said. "What's yours?" "Miles." She tilted her head. "You look like someone I drew once." That hit him harder than expected. "Yeah?" She nodded, holding the kite string again. "I draw people I wish I knew. Sometimes I pretend they're someone special." Miles cleared his throat. "Where's your mom?" "Back at the corner. She watches from the cafe window while she works." He looked over, and there, through the glass of a modest little coffee shop, sat a woman in a navy apron, head bowed as she wiped a table. His heart stopped. Nora. He hadn't seen her in 8 years. Not since he'd walked out of their apartment after a brutal argument about time, pressure, and dreams. She'd begged him to stay. He'd chosen the company. Now, here she was, and Lila. Lila was 8. "Do you want to come say hi to my mom?" the girl asked innocently. Miles couldn't speak. Instead, he looked at the kite still fluttering in her hand. It wasn't just a toy, it was a message, a symbol, something fragile, handmade, carried by wind and faith. He touched it gently. "Not yet," he said quietly. I think I'll watch from here for a bit." Lila grinned. "Okay, just don't let it crash. Kites fall fast when no one's holding the string." As she ran off, the kite soared again. But Miles, he stayed rooted. In his chest, something stirred, and for the first time in years, it wasn't empty. Miles sat alone in his car, parked across from the cafe. His hands gripped the steering wheel, but his mind spun faster than any engine. He couldn't stop staring at Nora. Same quiet grace, same careful movements, but there was something heavier in her now, a tiredness that settled deep in the shoulders. And Lila, 8 years old. A girl who made kites with glitter and hope, who called him Dad like it came from somewhere deeper than logic. He drove off without speaking to either of them. Back at NovaCore, Miles paced the length of his sleek office. His reflection stared back at him from the glass, calm on the outside, storming within. A photo of him and Uncle Frank sat on the shelf, Frank in his blazer, smiling like a man who'd never lost a deal. Miles picked it up and set it face down. "Find me everything you can on Nora Langston," he told his assistant. "Where she works, lives, anything public." Later that night, under the cover of dusk, Miles returned to the vacant lot. The wind had died down, but a small paper kite fluttered alone in the grass. He picked it up gently. Stars painted across the wings, same as before, but this one had a name scribbled in red ink at the tail. Lila. The next morning, he stood outside the cafe, dressed down in jeans and a hoodie, trying not to look like a CEO. Inside, Nora wiped down the counter, her back to the door. The bell chimed as he stepped in. She turned, froze. "Miles," she said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes flared with something deeper. Surprise, hurt, maybe even fear. "Hi," he said softly. The room fell quiet. 2 customers glanced up, then returned to their coffee. Nora crossed her arms. "I didn't expect to see you again. Ever." "I didn't expect to find you," Miles said. "Or her." Her gaze sharpened. "You spoke to Lila?" Miles nodded. "She said something, and I couldn't walk away." Nora swallowed hard. "You shouldn't be here. I just want to know," he said, voice low. "Is she—" Nora didn't answer. She looked down, then turned toward the espresso machine. "She's mine, isn't she?" Miles asked, his voice cracking. Nora didn't deny it. "I would have stayed," he added, "if I had known." Nora laughed once, dry, bitter. "No, Miles, you left, and your uncle made sure I understood exactly why." He blinked. "Frank? He told me you never wanted kids, that you were building an empire and didn't want a girl like me dragging you down." Miles felt cold crawl through him. "That's not true." "He sent a message, Miles. Said you were done. Said you'd moved on. I never sent any message." Nora stared at him, arms tightening around her waist. "I was pregnant. Alone. I wrote you so many times." "I never got them," he whispered. The room felt too small, the past too big. Miles stepped back, running a hand through his hair. "Lila. She deserves to know, not just who I am, but that I didn't walk away from her. She knows enough, Nora said. She knows how to fly, to build, to love, without you. A pause. Then, from the back of the cafe, a small voice rang out. Mom, he found my kite. Lila came bounding forward, eyes wide, holding the same kite Miles had picked up. You fixed it. He nodded, kneeling. Best I could. She grinned. You're good with paper. Most grown-ups tear it. I've torn a lot of things, Miles said quietly. But I'd like to fix what I can. Lila blinked. Like what? He looked up at Nora, then back at the girl. Maybe we can build something new, together. Lila reached into her pocket and pulled out a crumpled sketch. A stick figure man with a kite beside a small girl. I drew this yesterday. It looked like you. Miles held the picture like it was glass. Can I keep it? She nodded, eyes shining. And in that small drawing, crooked lines, bold colors, Miles saw something he hadn't felt in years. A beginning. A week later, the wind returned to the empty lot, playful and steady. Miles stood beside a folding table, hands covered in glue and string, a pair of safety scissors tucked behind his ear. Lila leaned over the table, tongue poking from the side of her mouth as she tied a tail made from old ribbon scraps. You sure this'll fly? She asked, holding up the kite with painted sunbeams across the wings. If we did it right, Miles said, smiling, it won't just fly, it'll soar. Nora watched from a distance, arms crossed but not as tightly as before. Her apron still bore flour smudges from the bakery shift she just left, but her eyes softened as she watched them. Lila looked up. Mom, come see. Nora stepped closer, cautiously. I'm not much of a kite expert, she said. You don't have to be, Lila grinned. You just have to hold the string while it climbs. Miles handed Nora the spool gently. Their fingers brushed. Neither spoke. Lila ran ahead, tugging the string. The kite bobbed, then caught a gust. It rose, dancing between power lines and clouds. Miles watched it go. She's really something. She is, Nora said, her voice steady. She's strong, even when I wasn't. He turned. You were more than strong, Nora. You raised her alone. You gave her color. Nora glanced at him, wary. Don't say that like you were never part of the choice. I didn't choose, Miles said quietly. I was tricked. Nora frowned. What do you mean? Miles sighed. That message, saying I didn't want kids, that I'd moved on, I didn't send it. I never said those words. Frank did. Her face froze. He had access to my phone, my calendar, everything back then. He convinced you I left because I didn't want this, but he wanted more shares. I was about to name you in my trust. If we had stayed together, he knew I'd give everything to you and the baby. Nora stepped back. You're saying Frank lied? Miles nodded. He stole my future. Ours. The ribbon on the kite fluttered as it reached its highest arc. Lila shouted, Look, it's flying by itself. But Miles didn't look up. His eyes were locked on Nora's. I don't expect forgiveness, he said, but I want truth between us now, for her. Nora blinked fast, breath shaking. I wrote you letters. I thought you didn't care. Miles's voice broke. I never saw a single one. Silence. Just the sound of the wind and string pulling taut. Then Lila yelled again. It's diving! Help me! Miles ran up, grabbed the line just before it tangled. The kite steadied mid-air. Nora rushed beside him, taking the spool back. Together they held the kite high again. You okay? He asked. Lila nodded, catching her breath. We saved it. Nora smiled faintly. You're good at rescues. Miles met her eyes. Maybe I just needed something worth saving. Lila tugged on his sleeve. Can we build another one tomorrow? With more stars this time? Miles crouched beside her. You lead, I'll follow. She beamed. Deal. From his coat pocket he pulled out the sketch she'd given him. It was wrinkled now, carried with care. This drawing, I keep it with me. Nora's gaze fell on it. Because it reminds me of what I lost, and what I might still build. The paper kite soared again, high above the lot, casting a long shadow across the cracked pavement. It wasn't perfect, edges frayed, colors uneven, but it held. So did the moment. And Miles, for the first time in years, didn't feel like a man standing apart from the world. He felt like someone slowly stepping back into it. Late Sunday afternoon, the Houston sky glowed in shades of amber and rose. The breeze teased the leaves, brushing gently over the vacant lot like a memory returning. Miles stood beside Lila, their latest kite clutched in her hands. This one was different, painted like a phoenix, wings wide, with hope written in gold across the tail. You ready? He asked. Lila nodded, eyes sparkling. Let's make it fly higher than yesterday. They launched it together. The wind caught instantly. The phoenix soared, climbing faster than the others they'd made. Miles shielded his eyes, tracking its rise. Behind them, Nora approached slowly, carrying a thermos and 2 paper cups. Thought you might want something warm. Miles smiled. You always knew the right time. They sat on the bench together, watching Lila guide the kite across the sky like a conductor leading music. She's fearless, Nora said. Every time that kite dives, she laughs. She's yours, Miles replied, but I see pieces of myself in her too. Nora sipped her drink. I see that now. Miles took a breath. I want to be there for her, not just with kites or stories, really there. Nora looked down. It's not just about showing up once. I know, he said. I missed 8 years. I don't want to miss another 8 minutes. Lila turned and waved. It's gliding by itself. Look. They both stood to watch, the kite rising so high it pulled the string taut. Then, snap! The string broke. The phoenix spun wildly, drifting out of control toward a cluster of trees. Lila gasped and ran. I've got it, she shouted. Miles and Nora ran too, dodging branches as the kite landed in a tangle of limbs. Lila pointed up. There, it's stuck. Miles climbed without thinking. His dress shoes slipped, but he caught himself. One more step, and he reached it. With both hands he gently tugged the string, careful not to tear the fragile paper. Below, Nora watched with her heart in her throat. Finally, Miles climbed down, holding the kite like a trophy. Lila clapped. You saved it. Miles crouched. It didn't fly on its own. It had someone holding on. He looked at Nora. She met his gaze. I'm not letting go this time, he said. Before Nora could answer, Miles's phone buzzed. He checked the screen. Frank. The name hit like ice. Problem? Nora asked. Depends who you ask, he said. Frank wants to meet tomorrow. Says there's pressure from the board. A deal I'm too distracted to close. Nora folded her arms. He knows, doesn't he? I think he suspects, Miles said, and he's not happy I'm spending time outside the office. Or outside his control. Miles stared at the broken string in his hand. I'll deal with him. He doesn't get to cut the lines anymore. Lila tugged on his sleeve. I can fix the kite. Want to help? He knelt beside her. Of course. She pulled out her tiny kit. Tape, string, glue, markers. They worked side by side, smoothing creases, reinforcing the tail. Look what I made, Dad, she said softly, holding up a sticker-covered wing. Miles froze. He hadn't expected her to call him that. Not yet, but she had, and it was real. He smiled, eyes glassy. Yeah, sweetheart. It's beautiful. As the sun dipped lower, the sky caught fire in the streaks of orange and purple. The three of them stood together, shoulder to shoulder, a little closer than before. The Phoenix Kite rested on the bench, its new string ready, wings patched but stronger, like them. Miles stood alone in the Novacor conference room, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows and silent board members. The city stretched out beneath him, gleaming, distant. But all he could see was the smile Lila gave him the night before, when she called him Dad. Frank entered late, unapologetic as usual, his tailored suit sharp, his eyes colder. "You're slipping, Miles," Frank said flatly. "Missing investor calls, pushing back deadlines, all for a little hobby in a field?" Miles didn't flinch. "It's not a hobby. It's my daughter." The room froze. Frank's eyes narrowed. "You're serious?" "I'm more serious than I've ever been." Frank stepped closer, voice low. "You think the board will back a CEO chasing kites and second chances? You built this company because I cleared the path." "No," Miles said. "You cleared the truth and buried what mattered." Frank smirked. "And if I told them why you walked away from Nora in the first place?" "I'd tell them what really happened," Miles replied. "That you intercepted a message, lied, manipulated both of us." Frank paused. "You have no proof." Miles raised his phone. "But I have a team combing through company logs and deleted messages. I will find it." Frank's jaw twitched. "Careful, nephew. You dig too deep, and you'll bury more than me." Miles leaned in. "You already buried enough." Back at the cafe, Nora stacked chairs while Lila colored at the window booth. The sketch showed a phoenix again, this time flying beside a smaller kite. Above them, 3 stick figures holding hands. "Is that us?" Nora asked. Lila nodded proudly. "I made the smaller kite me." Nora sat beside her, watching her daughter carefully shade in the tails with orange. "He looked scared this morning," Lila said suddenly, "when he dropped me off at school." "Why do you say that?" Lila shrugged. "He smiled, but his eyes were heavy, like they were holding something." Nora traced her finger along the drawing. "He's trying, sweetie, but grown-ups carry heavy things sometimes, especially when they're fixing what broke." Later that night, Miles knocked on Nora's apartment door. She opened it slowly, towel over her shoulder, flour on her hands. "Hey," he said, voice gentle. "You look like you haven't slept." "I haven't," he admitted. "I had a meeting." Frank pushed hard. "And I pushed back harder." She stepped aside, letting him in. Lila peeked from the hallway. "Dad, come see." He knelt as she ran over, arms wide, kite in hand. This one was different. Sleek, bright, with courage painted across the wings. "I want this one to fly first next time," she said. Miles took it in his hands, voice soft. "Then that's exactly what we'll do." Nora leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Are you ready for what this means? If Frank fights, it won't be quiet." Miles met her eyes. "I already lost years with you both. I won't lose another day." She looked down. "You might not get all the answers you want. I just want the truth, and a chance to make things right." Lila tugged at his shirt. "Can we put stars on the tail?" "Of course." They sat together on the living room floor, Nora watching as Miles helped Lila line the edges with tiny silver stars. He looked up. "When this flies, I want her to know, it's not just wind holding it up." Nora tilted her head. "Then what is?" "Us," he said. "What we're building." The phoenix kite from before still hung near the window. Outside, the sky darkened, but inside the lights were warm, and the stars, on paper, in spirit, began to shine. The next morning, Miles stood in his office, blinds drawn, the hum of the city muffled behind thick glass. On his desk lay an old folder Nora had given him, copies of letters she'd written years ago, never answered. His name was on every envelope. The ink faded, the paper curled at the corners, but her words felt alive. I wish you were here for her first word. It was sky. She asked today why other kids have dads. I hope one day you'll find us. She deserves to know. Miles pressed the pages to his chest, then slid them back into the folder and tucked it into his briefcase. He had a meeting with someone who owed him the truth. Downstairs, he walked into the conference lounge where Frank was already waiting with 2 investors. Finally, Frank said, I thought your little family detour was done. I'm just getting started, Miles replied calmly. He nodded at the investors. Excuse us, this won't take long. Frank stood, buttoning his coat. I warned you. You dig too deep. I dug, Miles cut in. And guess what I found? He dropped a flash drive on the table. Internal logs, calendar edits, a message to Nora, sent from my account, but not from me. Frank's face didn't twitch, but his hand stopped halfway to his pocket. I had IT pull deleted archives. It matches your IP address, Frank. You sent that message the night Nora told me she was pregnant. You made her believe I wanted nothing to do with my own child. You were distracted, Frank muttered. I protected the company. You destroyed my family. Frank exhaled sharply. Don't be so dramatic. You've got her now, don't you? Miles's voice dropped to a whisper. After missing 8 birthdays. After a child had to build a paper kite just to feel seen. Frank scoffed. You think one kid changes everything? Miles stepped closer. She's not one kid. She's my daughter, and from this point on she's the only legacy that matters. Frank's smirk faded. Miles picked up the flash drive. Stay away from Nora. Stay away from Lila. Resign quietly, or this goes public. Silence. Then Frank turned, adjusting his cuffs. You always did get sentimental when it cost you. As he walked out, Miles looked through the glass toward the horizon. The sky was bright, open, full of wind. That afternoon, Miles returned to the lot with Lila. She was already kneeling in the grass, sorting through colorful paper and bamboo sticks. Hey, he said, kneeling beside her. What you building this time? She smiled. One with wings like a dragon. He grinned. Why a dragon? Because dragons protect their treasure, she said simply. Miles paused. Is that what you are? Nope, she said, taping the frame. I'm the treasure. He laughed, his chest tightening with love and guilt all at once. And what's the dragon's name? She looked up. Miles? He blinked. She giggled. I mean, Dad. He leaned in, whispering, I like that name better. From the sidewalk, Nora approached with a picnic basket. She watched the 2 of them, wind teasing the hem of her coat. You look lighter, she said. I let go of something heavy, Miles replied. He stood, brushing grass from his pants. I confronted Frank. He won't be back. Her shoulders eased. You did it. No, we did. Every kite, every word, led me here. Lila held up the dragon kite, wings stretching wide. Look what I made, Dad. He crouched, eyes shining. It's perfect. As they launched it together, the dragon caught the breeze instantly, gliding higher than any before. They all watched in silence. And, for the first time since the beginning, Miles felt like the wind wasn't just pushing him forward, it was carrying him home. The next day, the sky over Houston was gray, but the wind held steady. Miles stood outside Nora's apartment building with a large, flat box in his hands. Lila had drawn something new, and he wanted her to see it come to life. Inside, the small living room buzzed with quiet excitement. Nora wiped her hands on a dish towel as Lila opened the box, gasping. It's the night kite, she exclaimed. The one with the stars and the moon like I drew. Miles smiled. You said you wanted one that glowed, so I added reflective paint and LEDs. It'll shimmer after sunset. Lila hugged him, quick and tight. You remembered. I remember everything you say. Nora raised an eyebrow. You also canceled a meeting today. Miles nodded. It was a big one. A contract with a Dubai firm. She crossed her arms. And you skipped it. For us? For her, he said. For this. He pulled out a flyer from his pocket. Across the top, bold letters read, Nova Corps Kite Club, building joy one string at a time. I've been working with the city, he continued. There's a community grant available. I'm funding a kite program, weekly workshops for kids, materials provided. We'll teach them how to build and fly. Nora blinked. That's a big shift from oil and energy. I want to power something else, Miles said. Wonder, imagination, families. Lila twirled with the kite in her arms. Can we fly it tonight? Miles looked outside. Clouds rolled thick above the rooftops, but he nodded. We'll try. By late afternoon, the three of them stood in the lot. Miles knelt to adjust the frame, tightening the wings with practiced hands. Nora held the spool, eyes on the sky. Lila danced back and forth, giddy with anticipation. All right, Miles called. On 3. They counted together, then released. The night kite caught the wind with surprising strength, climbing fast, the painted stars already catching slivers of light. Nora watched it rise, heart in her throat. Miles stepped beside her. You still love the sky? She glanced sideways. I stopped looking up for a long time. Because of me. Because of what we lost. Miles paused. I want to rebuild. Not just with her, but with you. Nora turned. You really think it's that simple? No, he said softly. But I think she's worth every hard thing, and so are you. Lila's laughter pulled them back. The kite spun gracefully, its tail flickering like a comet. Then it dipped suddenly. The spool spun wildly in Nora's hands. Miles, she called. He rushed to help, steadying the line. It's strong. It just needs guidance. He tugged gently, the kite stabilizing, then lifting again. Just like us, he murmured. Nora stared at him, the wind tugging her hair loose. You're different. I'm late, he said, but I'm here. Lila ran toward them, arms open. That was amazing. Miles caught her in one arm, still holding the line in the other. You flew it. No, she grinned. We did. That night, as they walked back to the apartment, Lila handed Miles something folded in half. A drawing, this time of a large tree with 3 kites hanging from its branches. One labeled Love, another Home. The last, Forgiveness. Look what I made, Dad. He touched the paper like it was glass. It's the most important blueprint I've ever seen. Back inside, Nora turned on a lamp, casting a soft golden glow over the small space. She watched him quietly as he tacked the drawing onto the fridge, next to a faded magnet that read, Hope Grows Here. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was carrying everything alone. And Miles, he didn't feel like he had to earn love. He only had to show up and stay. The next morning, Miles walked into his Houston office with quiet purpose. No security entourage, no tie. Just a man ready to reclaim what was stolen from him. His assistant looked up. Mr. Carter, Frank's in the boardroom, said he called an emergency meeting. Miles nodded. Let him wait. He stepped into his private suite and opened his laptop. One file blinked at the top of the screen. Confirmed. Fake text. Frank IP trace. He exhaled slowly, then copied it to a flash drive and slipped it into his pocket. Moments later, Miles entered the boardroom. Frank stood at the head of the table, already speaking to the board. We've had a concerning lack of focus from our CEO. He's missed major contract signings, diverted company resources for personal use, and... Frank, Miles said calmly, I'll take it from here. Frank smirked. You're late. No, Miles said, placing the flash drive on the table. I'm right on time. He clicked a remote. A screen behind him lit up with a time-stamped message log. 8 years ago, a text was sent to Nora Langston from my account. It claimed I didn't want a child, that I wanted out, but the server log shows it came from your IP, your device, and the access was traced to your login credentials. The room went silent. Miles turned to the board. Frank intercepted a moment that would have changed my life. He erased it, rewrote it, and used it to manipulate me, and her, all to secure his own shares. Frank's voice dropped. This is absurd. You'd take a family dispute and turn it into a corporate ambush? This isn't about family, Miles snapped. This is about ethics and ownership. A board member leaned forward. Is this why you've shifted your focus recently? Miles nodded. Yes, I reconnected with my daughter. My choices from here forward will reflect the kind of leader I want her to become. We're not just building energy, we're rebuilding trust. Frank's face paled as another director murmured, Let's vote on his removal. Miles watched him closely, but said nothing. Later that day, as rain pattered gently on Nora's window, Miles sat at the small kitchen table, helping Lila fold the wings of her latest creation, a butterfly kite with colorful spots. You ever build one shaped like this before? She asked, pressing a blue sticker onto the edge. Not yet, Miles said, but I think this one's gonna surprise the sky. Nora placed 2 cups of cocoa down, then sat across from them. I heard from a friend at City Hall today. Miles looked up. The community grant you mentioned, it was approved. He smiled. Then it's official. We start next week. Lila clapped. Can I teach other kids how to build tails? You can lead the whole workshop, Miles said proudly. They'll need a captain. She grinned. Captain Lila. Nora sipped her cocoa, then leaned closer. And Frank? Gone, Miles said quietly. Unanimous vote. He's out. Nora studied his face. You okay? I thought confronting him would bring closure, he admitted, but it just opened more doors, about the kind of father and man I still want to be. Nora reached into the drawer and pulled out a photo, a younger Miles holding Nora on the beach, kite string in his hand. I kept it, she said, setting it beside the cocoa, even when I hated you. He looked at it, eyes soft. I remember that day. We said the wind made everything lighter. Maybe it still can, she whispered. Lila slid the butterfly kite onto the table. Look what I made, Dad. He traced his finger over the wings, then kissed her forehead. It's beautiful. The rain outside softened into mist. And, somewhere in that little kitchen, 3 hearts began mending. 1 fold, 1 tail, 1 breeze at a time. The following Saturday, the vacant lot didn't look vacant anymore. Children ran barefoot across the grass, laughter rising into the breeze. Tables overflowed with colored paper, glue sticks, rolls of string, and bamboo dowels. Signs marked in crayon read, Welcome to Kite, Club, and Let Your Dreams Fly. Miles stood near the center, watching it all unfold. Nora walked up beside him, a clipboard in her hand. We've got 27 kids signed up so far. That's more than double what we expected. He looked at her. You think it's the free snacks? She smiled. It's the heart. Lila bounded up, clutching a stack of tissue paper. Dad, look. We're doing butterfly wings today. Can you help cut the antennae? Miles knelt, already pulling scissors from his back pocket. Lead the way, Captain. As they worked, a reporter from a local Houston news station approached, microphone in hand. Mr. Carter, can I ask what inspired a CEO to swap boardrooms for kite strings? Miles wiped glue from his fingers. Sometimes the wind changes and you have to follow it. My daughter showed me there's more power in presence than in profit. The camera turned to Lila, who raised her butterfly proudly. We build things that fly, and they don't need engines. Just love and wind. The reporter chuckled. That's a headline. Nearby, a nervous-looking woman approached Nora. Hi, I'm Marisol. I brought my son, Javi. He's 8. We just moved here. He's never really fit in." Nora smiled warmly. "He's in the right place. Here, everyone flies at their own pace." Later, Miles stood beside a large folding table helping a shy boy tape his kite frame together. "That's good. Keep the tension even, or it'll wobble." The boy peeked up. "Are you really a CEO?" "Sometimes," Miles said with a wink. "But today, I'm just a dad who loves kites." Lila ran over, waving her clipboard. "We need judges for the design contest." Miles laughed. "Judges, huh? Tough job." She grinned. "Only if you're scared to pick mine." As evening neared, the wind picked up. One by one, the children launched their kites into the golden sky. Birds of every shape danced above the lot. Dragons, butterflies, stars, even a taco. Miles watched it all, then stepped away to a quiet edge of the field. Nora joined him. "You did this." "No," he said. "She did." He pulled something from his pocket, a folded piece of notebook paper, creased and soft. It was Lila's original drawing, a phoenix and a little girl, flying side by side. "I skipped a global summit today," Miles said quietly. "It was in Zurich." Nora blinked. "That's huge. Why?" He looked at her. "Because Lila had a dream that mattered more, and because I wanted to be here, for all of it." A breeze caught Nora's hair. "You're not just showing up anymore, you're staying." "I am." They turned to watch as Lila's new kite, a sunburst with a spiral tail, caught the wind and soared higher than the others. She jumped and spun beneath it, yelling, "Look what I made, Dad!" Miles waved back, eyes shining. "I see it, baby. It's beautiful." She blew him a kiss. Nora looked at him, then reached for his hand. In the sky above them, dozens of kites twisted and turned together. But it was the little sunburst, stitched with gold thread, bearing the word "begin," that flew farthest. And Miles knew this was more than redemption. It was the start of something lasting, something whole. The sky over Houston was clear that Sunday morning, bright, still, like it was holding its breath. Miles stood outside Nora's apartment, adjusting his collar. He held a small paper box wrapped in tissue. Inside, folded carefully, was Lila's original phoenix kite, restored, laminated, and framed in glass. When the door opened, Lila jumped into his arms. "Dad, I made cinnamon toast all by myself." He laughed, lifting her. "I hope you made extra." From the kitchen, Nora smiled. She burned the first two, but the third's almost edible. They gathered at the small breakfast table. The sunlight streamed across the wood, catching the shimmer in the glass frame as Miles unwrapped the gift. Lila's eyes widened. "You kept it?" "I fixed it," he said softly, "because it was never broken, just waiting." She ran her finger along the edge of the frame. "Now it'll fly forever." Miles turned to Nora. "I was thinking, maybe today we fly together, all three of us, not just in the lot. I signed us up for the festival by the bay." Nora hesitated. "That's a big crowd." "We've already faced bigger," he said gently. By mid-afternoon, the festival grounds buzzed with music and color. Dozens of families filled the shoreline, arms full of string and dreams. Booths lined the path with ribbon stalls, lemonade, face painting. A large banner read, "Annual Houston Kite Festival. Catch the wind." Miles, Nora, and Lila stood at the top of a grassy hill. Their kite, a new creation, crafted by all three, was shaped like a lighthouse, its long tail striped in blue and white, with the word "home" written across its middle. "Ready?" Miles asked. Lila held the string tight. "Let's lift it." They released it together. The wind carried it upward, smooth and proud. It spun once, twice, then soared. "Look what I made, Dad!" Lila shouted. He smiled. "Look what we made." Nearby, a woman pointed toward their kite and whispered, "That's the Nova Corps guy, right?" Miles heard it but didn't flinch. He kept his eyes on the kite, fingers light on the reel. Nora stepped beside him, quiet. "You still worry they'll see you differently?" "They already do," he said. "But maybe that's the point." They sat together on a quilted blanket as Lila ran ahead, chasing the tail's shadow across the grass. "Sometimes I wonder," Nora said, "if we would have made it back without all the pain." Miles looked at her, the wind tousling his hair. "Maybe not, but we're here now, and I'm not letting go." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small pouch. Inside, a pendant, silver in the shape of a kite, Lila's initials engraved on the back. "For her," he said, "to carry with her when the wind isn't strong." Nora took it, eyes misting. "And when it is?" He smiled. "Then it reminds her who helped her fly." Lila came bounding back. "Can we get ice cream now?" Miles laughed. "Only if you promise not to drop it in the grass this time." She grinned. "No promises." They walked toward the food booths together, hand in hand, the three of them. Behind them, their lighthouse kite still floated, high above the trees. And beneath it, for the first time in a long time, a family moved forward. Not perfect, not polished, but whole. In the distance, a child's voice cried, "Mine's flying too, Daddy!" And Miles knew. They weren't just catching wind anymore. They were building it, for others, for her, for them. The afternoon sun spilled golden light over the small table in Miles's office, but instead of spreadsheets or oil contracts, it was covered in construction paper, ribbons, and little jars of glitter. Lila sat cross-legged in a chair far too big for her, tongue poking out as she carefully glued stars onto a fresh kite design. "Look," she said, holding it up. "This one's for the kids who don't have anyone to help." Miles looked up from across the desk. "Then we'll help them." She grinned. "I'll call it the Hope Flyer." He nodded. "Perfect name." That evening, Miles stood before the City Planning Commission in a modest meeting room. No fancy suit, no slideshow, just blueprints, a heart, and Lila's kite in a folder. "We're proposing a permanent kite park," he told the council. "A creative, safe space for families and children. Not just an event once a year, but every day." One council member leaned forward. "Mr. Carter, your company's known for innovation in energy. Why shift to kites?" Miles smiled. "Because for years I invested in things that lit up cities. Now I want to light up lives." Outside, Nora waited with Lila on a bench, bundled in her hoodie, legs swinging. "Is he nervous?" Lila asked. Nora brushed hair from her daughter's cheek. "He's brave. There's a difference." The meeting ended with a unanimous vote. Approved. The park was greenlit. Miles stepped out, blinking against the dusk, and raised both arms in quiet triumph. Lila ran up. "Did they say yes?" "They did," he said, lifting her into the air. "The Hope Flyer has a home." 2 weeks later, a groundbreaking ceremony began at the edge of the same vacant lot where everything had started. But this time, construction crews stood ready, and a sign read, "Coming soon, Lila's Field, a kite park for all." A news crew captured the moment Lila cut the ceremonial ribbon, her kite trailing behind her in the breeze. The reporter leaned into her mic. "Why name it Lila's Field?" Lila squinted up at the sky. "Because this is where I called out to my dad." Miles wrapped an arm around her shoulder. "And it's where I finally heard her." Nora watched from the sidelines, eyes full. A park built from pain and patched with grace. Rising. Real. Later that night, back at their apartment, Lila pulled something from under her bed. A shoebox filled with her earliest kite pieces. Crumpled drawings, snapped sticks, bits of string. "I used to build them alone," she said, showing them to Miles. "They'd fall apart a lot." He sat beside her on the floor. "But you didn't give up." I always thought, she whispered, if they stayed up long enough someone would notice. Miles looked down at the bent frame of her very first kite, uneven wings, faded paper, but a red heart still drawn in the center. He picked it up gently. I noticed, Lila. It just took me too long. She leaned against him. Not too long, just enough to still be here. Nora stepped in, watching the two of them against the glow of a single floor lamp, the soft hum of evening, the quiet of things coming full circle. Miles placed the heart kite gently back in the box. Tomorrow, he said, we hang that one in the center of the park's welcome sign. Lila looked up. So, everyone sees where it started? He nodded. Exactly. A paper kite, a second chance. And outside, the wind stirred, lifting leaves, brushing windows, carrying with it a promise born not in perfection, but in persistence. They had once been scattered. Now they were soaring. The conference room was quiet, but the tension buzzed louder than the fluorescent lights overhead. Frank sat across from Miles, suit pressed, face stiff with practiced calm, but the corner of his eye twitched. You called me here to gloat? He asked. Miles didn't flinch. I called you here to give you a choice. Frank leaned back, folding his arms. I've already lost. You made sure of that. No, Miles said. You lost when you used Lila's life to protect your seat at the table. He reached into his bag and pulled out a folder. Inside, a printed letter addressed to the board, and a copy of the original text Frank had altered 8 years ago. I could have gone public with this. Headlines, lawsuits, but Lila asked me not to. Frank raised an eyebrow. She knows? She knows you lied to her mom, Miles said calmly. But she said, let's not fight. Let's fix things. Frank scoffed. The wisdom of a child. No, Miles said. The courage of one. Frank looked away. Miles pushed the folder across the table. You're resigning from the foundation, from all advisory roles, but you'll make one final donation. Frank smirked. To what? To Lila's field, Miles replied. You'll help build what you tried to destroy. Silence. Then Frank picked up a pen. You always were too sentimental. Miles met his eyes. You always thought that was weakness. Frank signed. And you think this makes you a hero? No, Miles said. It just makes me present. Later that evening, Miles stood at the edge of the nearly finished park. The wind was soft, trees newly planted along the fence. A small wooden plaque had just been fastened near the gate. Let the broken pieces fly. Dedicated to all kids who never stopped hoping. Lila ran toward him, arms full of ribbon. Dad, come help! I'm making the grand kite. Miles chuckled. The what now? The biggest one ever. It has all our designs, yours, mine, and Mom's. He knelt beside her, smoothing out the paper. That's a lot of stories to carry. Lila nodded. That's why I'm giving it a strong spine. Like us. Inside their apartment later, Nora was packing sandwiches for the opening ceremony the next day. She glanced over her shoulder as Miles stepped in. How'd it go with Frank? He signed everything. Even agreed to match our grant. She exhaled. I never thought he'd give in. Miles walked over, kissed her temple. He didn't. Lila gave him no room not to. Nora smiled faintly. She's something. She's everything. Then she handed him a folded cloth from the drawer. Miles opened it slowly, his old Novacor scarf, the one he'd worn in every press photo for 10 years. Nora had embroidered a single word into the edge. Lila. She asked me to add that, Nora said. Said, you're not just building companies anymore. You're building her. Miles swallowed hard, clutching the fabric. The next morning, just before dawn, the trio arrived at Lila's field. Crowds gathered, children in matching t-shirts, parents with lawn chairs and thermoses. Lila stepped to the mic, nervously clutching her speech. Hi. This park is for kids who feel like their ideas don't matter, but they do. They really do. She held up the grand kite. And this is for anyone who ever felt forgotten. You're not. You were just waiting for the right wind. The crowd clapped. Tears shimmered in more eyes than one. Miles stepped forward, unrolling the kite, tying its line. Together, the three of them ran, Nora holding one wing, Miles the other, Lila in front. The kite caught air, flapped, dipped, then climbed. And climbed, and climbed. Above the park, above the pain, above the past. And in the hush that followed, a little voice whispered, "Look what we made, Dad." He looked up and saw a future stitched in string, sealed in hope, and flying free. A month after the ribbon cutting, Lila's field had become something more than a park. It was a heartbeat. Every Saturday, families gathered early, arms full of fabric, thread, and dreams. The wind carried stories in every direction. Miles stood near the tool shed, watching a boy carefully draw flames on his kite tail. A single mom adjusted her son's goggles nearby. Two teens sketched wing patterns on a picnic bench. It was working. Nora approached, holding 2 steaming coffees. You've got a line of parents asking how to start clubs like this in their neighborhoods. Miles took a cup, smiling. We'll show them. This doesn't belong to us. It belongs to everyone who ever needed a second chance. He nodded toward a group of kids huddled around a board that read, "Build, Fly, Believe." In the center of the park, a new sculpture had just gone up, a twisting column of brushed steel shaped like a soaring kite. At its base was a plaque, dedicated to all children chasing sky, with courage as their string. Lila's idea. That afternoon, a group of volunteers set up donation boxes near the gate, Miles's old staff among them, still in suits, rolling up sleeves. One of his former board members, Tricia, approached him. "You know, you're more effective here than in that corner office." He chuckled. "Maybe I just needed the right wind." As the sky turned amber, Lila stood on a small platform in the middle of the lawn, microphone in hand. "Today, we're launching a new part of the park," she said proudly. "It's called Wings for All, for kids who don't have supplies, or family, to fly with. They'll get help from big buddies, like me." A round of applause. She turned to the crowd. "This is what hope looks like." Then she spotted Miles and called out, "Dad, come see the wall." He followed her across the lawn to the far side of the lot. There, beneath a shaded awning, was a mural. Bright, swirling colors danced across the panels. It showed kids flying with strings attached to paper dreams. In the center, painted in soft brushstrokes, was a man holding a little girl on his shoulders, both laughing, a kite in the sky above them. "That's us," Lila whispered, "from that first day." He touched the image gently. "You made us into art." She reached into her backpack, pulling out a folded piece of notebook paper. A drawing. "I want to add this to the mural next week," she said. "It's a phoenix, but this time it's holding 3 kites in its claws." Miles studied it. Each kite had a name: Lila, Nora, Miles. He looked at her. "Why a phoenix?" She grinned. "Because we burned a little, but we rose." Back home that night, Nora sat at the dining table sorting thank you notes from local schools and shelters. Miles joined her, dropping a folder on the stack. "What's that?" she asked. "Blueprints for 2 more parks, one in San Antonio, one in Baton Rouge." She blinked. "That's a lot of wind to chase." He leaned in. "It's not about chasing, it's about lifting others." In the next room, Lila hummed softly as she packed a new kite bag. Her voice drifted back to them. "Tomorrow's Design Day." Miles smiled. "She never slows down." "Neither did you," Nora said gently. "Until now. Now you move with meaning." They stood in the doorway together, watching their daughter tuck her phoenix drawing into a sketchbook. Nora turned to Miles. "We're not just fixing what was broken. We're building what never was." He wrapped an arm around her shoulders and letting it fly. Outside, the night wind pressed softly against the windows. And inside, a family, once lost in silence, had become the hum of something strong, something stitched in light, ready for every breeze ahead. The festival grounds buzzed with excitement as families poured into Lila's field, kites in hand, laughter rising into the bright Texas sky. Colorful streamers lined the fences. Tents brimmed with craft tables. Music drifted from a small stage where local kids took turns performing. Miles stood near the entrance watching it all unfold with quiet awe. Nora joined him, holding a clipboard. 300 people registered, she said, eyes shining. Some drove in from out of state. Miles smiled. That little girl with a paper kite built a movement. Lila, in her red hoodie and jeans, stood proudly on the main hill, holding the grand kite they had all helped design. Its body was shaped like a phoenix, with 3 tails, each bearing a name: Miles, Nora, Lila. "Ready, Dad?" she called. "Always," Miles replied. They walked to the center field together. Volunteers formed a wide circle, giving the kite space to lift. Children shouted encouragement from the sidelines. Miles crouched beside Lila, helping her adjust the string tension. "You sure it's balanced?" he asked. She nodded. "Triple checked. We fly today." He looked at Nora, who smiled from across the field, camera in hand. Then the wind picked up, soft at first, then stronger. "Go!" Lila shouted. She ran, feet kicking up dust, string taut between her fingers. The grand kite lifted slowly, shaking, rising, then catching full wind. Up, up it soared. The crowd erupted. "Look what we made, Dad!" Lila shouted, spinning under the shadow of the kite. Miles's chest swelled. "It's flying," he whispered. "She's flying." He ran to Nora, pulling her into a hug. She laughed into his chest. "We did it!" All around them, other kites began to rise. A wave of color swept the sky. Dragons, hearts, butterflies, birds. The MC took the mic at the main stage. "Today, we celebrate not just wind and wings, but the power of second chances and the people who never gave up." He gestured toward Miles, a man who turned regret into redemption, who chose family over fortune, who let love lead. The crowd clapped as Miles, Nora, and Lila stepped onto the stage. Lila held the mic tightly. "This place started when I yelled, 'Dad, look!' and he stopped." She looked at Miles. He could have kept driving, but he turned around. Miles put a hand on her shoulder. "And in turning back, I found everything I never knew I needed." He turned to the crowd. "Let today be a reminder. For every broken thing, there's a breeze strong enough to lift it." They held up the phoenix kite together. The wind caught its tail, flaring it behind them like flame. That evening, under golden light, the trio walked hand in hand down the field. Their shadows stretched behind them. Lila's backpack bounced with every step. "Did you see the taco kite?" she asked. "I did," Miles said. "It made me hungry." Nora laughed. "I think you've officially become a kite dad." He grinned. "Is there a badge for that?" Lila looked up. "You already earned it. You showed up." Near the gate, a little boy ran past, holding a new kite. Miles paused. "Wait, is that the same boy who was afraid of heights last week?" Lila nodded. "He said today the wind felt different." Miles looked out across the field, at the families, the flying shapes, the sunlight bending behind them. "Yeah," he whispered, "it does." Then he lifted Lila into his arms, Kite trailing behind them like a ribbon of hope. And as the last rays dipped below the trees, 3 shadows danced on the grass. A father, a mother, a daughter, bound by string, lifted by love and flying forward together.